Ask yourself the damn question. Is winning the only thing to you?
Sports today are not just played on the field. They're played every day, online, all over the world, by sports fans just like you.
Don't you dare breathe. That won't get you anywhere. If you don't think you're a winner, you don't belong here.
The Star Fantasy League Show puts you in control of your own team. Find out who to sit, who to start, how to play, and have your daily fantasy sports questions answered with your host, Jonathan Sprung, and co-host SFL CEO Zach Stanley and Nick Steblenko. The Star Fantasy League Show is on the air now.
Hello, Radio Universe, and welcome to the Star Fantasy League Show here on 105.5 The Team. I am your host, Matthew Footer, filling in this week for Jonathan Sprung, and I am joined by, for the fourth day in a row, Jason Granger. Jason, how's it feel to be back for another day?
Well, I hope people weren't taking our postseason predictions to heart.
Boy, I texted you last night and said that. I was just like, anybody who we pick the exact opposite because we are both 0 for 2 so far based on our predictions on Monday.
Yeah, I hope nobody put thousands of dollars on
that would be
advice.
That would be unfortunate if people lost money, preferably in Vegas or something like that, where it is legal to bet on sports. Like that would be terrible if that happened to someone. So
yeah, luckily Zach's not here to. I don't know, reprimand me for.
Yeah, you might be fired. You might be taking
advice.
my spot, being fired on a weekly basis. But we are back for day 4 this week. Tomorrow will be our last day, most likely, unless the guys decide to stay up in Vegas and maybe start our own branch out there. I don't know. They've talked about it, so.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
Cool. We can run things here. That works for me. We got an East Coast and a West Coast location. All right, we got a lot to cover today. There's a lot happened in sports. A lot happened last night in sports. We're going to jump right into the baseball playoff race. As we talked about yesterday, we talked about the American League Wild Card game recap. Today we're going to talk about the game that took place last night, the National League Wild Card play-in game, and that was between the San Francisco Giants and Pittsburgh Pirates. San Francisco came out on top 8-0 in what was one of the most boring games I've actually watched in postseason baseball in a while.
Yeah, Madison Bumgarner went out there and kind of just took it right to him. You know, the PNC crowd was pretty electric to start the game, and then it just went eerily quiet after the moment that ball left Brandon Crawford's bat and cleared the fence there. Pretty much just ended the game right there.
Yeah, grand slam put him up 4-0, and I think Volquez gave up one more run before they pulled him in the fifth, at the top of the fifth. So he ended up with a line of 5 hits, 5 earned runs, and 3 walks. And then, they had a couple guys. Posey had a single, and Belt had a couple singles that basically just finished out the scoring and put the nail in the coffin. So.
Yeah. Giants have now won 7 straight postseason games in which they have faced elimination, which is actually tied with the Royals for the longest streak. And Madison Bumgarner's last 2 postseason starts have been pretty amazing. He's gone 16 innings, no earned runs, 6 hits, 18 strikeouts, and only 3 walks.
That's impressive.
So he's been dominant. I know I had originally picked the Giants as a gut pick just because Bumgarner was on the mound, and then I did my research for the show yesterday, changed my mind to Pittsburgh, and that was a mistake.
You felt the peer pressure of myself going with Pittsburgh. I went with Pittsburgh just because I didn't think they would lose it 2 years in a row, having the opportunity to get in. I just felt that this was their year to get in, and I thought they were going to be a good matchup for the Nationals. I don't think the Giants are going to be any worse of a matchup, but that's who is going to end up playing the Nationals is now the Giants, and it's going to be an interesting series and how that breaks down. But
the series lines up real well now for the Nationals, who will probably only have to face Bumgarner once, probably Game 3, but I did see out that he wasn't ruling out pitching twice in this series. Maybe if it goes to 5 games, I guess we'll see. I did see a pretty funny quote that Tim Hudson, one of my favorite pitchers, he was an XA. I don't know if you saw this.
I didn't.
Regarding the Nationals, he was quoted saying, "Obviously, they have a talented group over there. There's no question. They have some great pitching, but come playoff time, talent can take you a long ways. But what do you have between your legs? That's going to take you real far."
Wow.
And I think we've got a group in here that really has some of that.
Really?
Yes.
I think people can fill in the blank with what he was saying there, but that's interesting. I mean, you look at the makeup of both of the lineups, and I definitely give the advantage based on what I've seen to the Giants of postseason history, knowing what you said that stat yesterday. They've won 2 World Series in even numbered years. They've been there recently where the Nationals really haven't. You know.
Yeah, I think the Nationals, a lot of people are picking them. I pick them. They have the most, I think, complete team, deepest team. They have a great pitching staff. We'll see. A lot of those guys haven't been in the postseason. We'll see how they perform under the bright lights. Should be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about Bumgarner, too, you were saying that he might pitch twice. He only threw 109 pitches, which may sound like a lot, but for postseason baseball, that's really not that much for a guy to basically, go that long. So
yeah, and he joins a list of now only 3 pitchers to ever throw a shutout with over 10 strikeouts in a winner-take-all postseason game. The other 2 were Justin Verlander in 2012 and Sandy Koufax in 1965.
Perfect. We're not going to actually talk about the 2 games going on. We're going to talk about one of them. We're not going to talk about the Baltimore-Detroit game because that is going on in progress. So it would be kind of unfair to say, oh, well, this team's going to win because we kind of know what's going on there. So we're going to actually talk about a recap of that tomorrow. But we are going to preview the other American League series, and that's Kansas City, who won the other night against the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
Yes.
What's your take on this series?
Well, I think tonight we'll see what it could be a nice preview of the whole series. I know since 2007, 12 of 14 teams that have won Game 1 of the ALDS have advanced to the ALCS. Mm-hmm. So Game 1's huge. We always know that. The Angels' offense has been dominant all year long. They led the league in runs scored. It'll be Mike Trout's first time in the postseason, which is it's kind of weird to think that he hasn't been in the postseason ever.
It really is.
And they'll have Josh Hamilton back tonight. Mm-hmm. We'll see what happens with him. I know he was slumping kind of this season. Mm-hmm. We'll see if he performs well. I know the Angels had a kind of a good thing going for them at the end of the year with him out of the lineup, so that should be.
Yeah, he honestly, from what I can remember his days in Texas playing against the Yankees and other series, he's never been a big postseason player. He doesn't really produce, so it'll be interesting, fresh environment to see what happens there. Be interesting to see what Pujols does as well with them.
Yeah, he's been there a couple times with St. Louis in the World Series. Hamilton does have 3 home runs in his career against Vargas, who's pitching tonight for the Royals. Yep. Vargas was on the Angels last year. He should know them pretty well. He's been solid this year, 11-10, 3.71 ERA. Overall, Angels are hitting .308 in their career against him with 9 homers, 25 extra base hits, and only 33 strikeouts and 214 at-bats. But I got to go with the Angels tonight. I'm
going to go with the Angels as well. So if you're placing money, that means you put them on the Kansas City Royals tonight.
Yes.
Because we both picked the Angels, and we are 0 for 2 if you're just tuning in.
And the Royals are riding high after their comeback win the other night.
I really honestly could see them winning because it's all about momentum in postseason baseball, especially a 5-game series. But I'm just going to stick with the Angels at this point because I did pick them to win this series. So I'm not going to go against what I said now because that would be cheating, right?
I guess so.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, enough baseball talk for today. We're going to jump in because it is Thursday. We do have football for Week 5 starting. We have the mighty Minnesota Vikings traveling up to Lambeau and taking on the Green Bay Packers. It's going to be an interesting game tonight because there's a lot of doubt regarding the status of Teddy Bridgewater. As of right now, they haven't said if he's going to play or not. It'll come out about 90 minutes before game time. So it sounds like he's not going to play from the last thing that I heard. But, you can't really read everything out there.
Yeah, so that'd mean the return of Christian Ponder to action.
Boy.
Are you ready for that?
Oh, man. I used to love watching him back in the day because I liked watching Florida State football. And I was when he was at Florida State, I was like, all right, he's not bad at quarterback. Then I realized that he had a lot of talent around him. And I think the same thing can be kind of said for E.J. Manuel as well, unfortunately. So
yeah, well, the Vikings are 1-11-1 in their last 13 road games against NFC North opponents and 1-8-1 on the road since the start of last year. So that's not good. That's not a good sign for them.
No.
The Packers also are 19-4-1 in division games at home since Mike McCarthy took over as coach in 2006, which is the third best record behind New England and Indy in that span. Mm-hmm. So it's looking good for the Packers tonight. Minnesota's probably going to be a little shorthanded. It could be a long night for the Vikings if they don't have their running game going against suspect Green Bay run D. I think they're 30th against running backs in the league so far this year. Matt Forte kind of torched them last week, 125 yards on the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing that Green Bay hasn't done well so far this year has been stop the run and run the ball. Eddie Lacy has been pretty much bottled up through 3 games. Teddy Bear 2, Nick Steblenko, has been saying, wait on him. He has 3-4 tough matchups to start the season. He thinks this is the week that he's probably going to end up breaking out.
Yeah, the Vikings have multiple front injuries to their front 7, so if Lacy were to break out at some point, it might be tonight. The pieces are in place, I think, for him to have a great game. Vikings are 20th against opposing running backs. We'll see if they get him going. I know he scored a touchdown last week, but he only had like 47 yards rushing or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be an interesting game. The line's set at 47.5, so they still expect somewhat of a scoring game. Aaron Rodgers came out last week and week before and told the fans to relax, and he came out and proved it. He had his second highest QB rating of his career on Sunday against division rival. We got another division rival coming in.
Yeah, I'm not expecting a huge game from them, especially if they get up early and they can control the ground game. But I could still see, Rodgers, Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb all having a pretty solid game as far as fantasy goes tonight.
Yeah, definitely. Let's break this game down a little bit based on Star Fantasy values, because that's what we are here. We are the Star Fantasy League. A lot of games you can play online are just Sunday games, but we do have games that you can play that include the Thursday night games. A lot of people don't know that. Right. So looking at a few of the values, let's start with Minnesota. Who on their team would you think is a good value tonight to play against?
Probably the best guy I'm looking at is Matt Asiata. We talked about Green Bay doesn't have the best running defense. He didn't have as many yards last week as McKinnon did. So it'll be interesting to kind of see the split in carries they give those two coming off their dominant performance against Atlanta. He's still got great value on Star Fantasy Leagues, so he's the one guy from Minnesota I would kind of look to.
Yeah, he's listed at around 10,000, just a shade over that. I think I agree with that. I think McKinnon's a good value to play this week too, because he's listed about 4,500. The weather's going to be bad. They said there's going to be probably a thunderstorm, so they're probably not going to be throwing the ball a lot, especially if Bridgewater's hurt. You figure they're not going to put the ball in Christian Ponder's hand to throw it. Yeah,
Norv Turner calling the plays there. It'll be interesting to kind of see what game plan he has with Ponder at quarterback.
Yeah, on the Green Bay side, is there anybody that kind of really sticks out to you that you should be playing based on their value?
Maybe Devontae Adams. I know he didn't have a great game last week, but he's definitely down there as far as value goes.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's around 3,300. I think he's a good option. I would even roll a Lacy at 10,000 for a starting running back. That's someone that you want to put in there. So coming out of the break, we're going to actually jump back into the NHL, talk a little of that, and you're listening to the Star Fantasy League show here on 105.5 The Team.
The Star Fantasy League Show. Information is key to being a successful fantasy team owner, and the guys have all the updated info you need right now. Okay, fantasy sports fans.
There's a letter in your mailbox.
Time to dig into Donald's mailbag for your questions and comments.
Read the mail, read the mail, read the mail.
Jump in the game. Send your questions and comments to the Star Fantasy League's team by tweeting at SFL Show.
We are back on the Star Fantasy League show here on 105.5 The Team. I am your host, Matthew Footer, filling in for Jonathan Sprung, and I am joined by Jason Gringer. If you are tuning in to listen to Donald's Mailbag, we are postponing that today because we have so much to talk about and probably won't have it tomorrow as well, so tune in next week if you're just tuning in for that segment.
Everybody's going to be disappointed now that you said that.
I am sorry. I'm wading through the stacks of mail as we speak. I can't even sit properly because I'm sitting on so much mail.
It's that or we don't have any mail because John's gone. Everybody.
Shh, we don't tell the listeners that, all right?
Well, okay.
We have lots of mail. We just can't get to it all. All right, let's jump into the NHL. Yesterday we did the Atlantic Division. Today we're going to talk about the Metropolitan Division. And tomorrow we're going to do the whole Western Conference. Got to get our hockey talk while the guys are out of the office because otherwise it wouldn't happen. But we'll start today with the defending champions of the Metropolitan Division. The Pittsburgh Penguins last year finished top of the division with 51 wins, 24 losses, and 7 overtime losses. Obviously, they bring back the best player probably in the game. It's Sidney Crosby, by far the best fantasy player available. Also added on the team, they have Evgeny Malkin, Chris Kunitz. But they did lose some big guys in the offseason.
Yeah, they traded James Neal away. They got Patrick Hornquist back for him, which, I don't know, it's definitely a downgrade, I think.
Yeah.
But he's still a good player. They lost their head coach. They lost their GM. That was quite the situation after they got bounced out of the playoffs once again last year. They've been quite the disappointment since 2009 when they won the Cup.
Yep.
We saw Fleury had another bad postseason.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions around Bilesma. They fired their GM first, but they didn't fire Bilesma.
Yeah, that was a crazy situation. Yeah. I couldn't understand. First off, I felt Bilesma should have lost the job a long time ago.
Yeah.
And then especially after the mishap at the Olympics, which you can't really judge him on that for his Penguin stuff, but, having the USA basically set up to medal, not getting anything out of it. So, I don't know. I've always had a sour taste in my mouth for that guy.
Right. So, new head coach Mike Johnson comes on. They also picked up Ehrhoff from Buffalo, which is 1 year, I think $4 million.
I think that's a great move for them. Ehrhoff was a pretty productive guy when he was with Buffalo when they were actually good, and he was a really good player. Helped Vancouver reach the Stanley Cup in 2010.
Yeah, they needed somebody. They lost Niskanen and Orpik both to Washington, both free agents, and they also picked up Steve Downey, which is a nice signing. I like them for them. So,
yeah, he's a guy who could put in 15 goals, maybe 20 at the tops. Yeah. Adds that toughness that they need as well. They got a few young guys on the team like Bo Bennett who could possibly step up this year as well.
Yeah, I definitely like them to finish first again in this Metropolitan Division, which I hate saying that name because it's just the weirdest name for a division.
But, we could call it the Metro Division, but that sounds kind of interesting as
well.
well.
Anyway you kind of shape it, it's just weird.
All right. Well, we're going to move on and go to the team that actually finished second in the division but was in the Stanley Cup last year. The New York Rangers finished with 45 wins last year. They had a lot of changes throughout the trade deadline to this start of the season. They had a lot of guys kind of move around. They traded away their captain, Ryan Callahan, at the deadline, brought Marty St. Louis, who obviously helped propel them to the Stanley Cup, I felt, in the playoffs. Yeah. He was a little slow starting off, but I think he really gelled with the team when they needed him.
Yeah, definitely. They bought out Brad Richards last 6 seasons of his 9-year, $60 million deal, who he's now in Chicago. I love having him. As a Blackhawks fan, it's a great pickup.
Yep.
They locked up Brassard and Kreider. I think that was a great move. They're probably the best defensive team in the East, I think. They've got a great defense, solid on the blue line. They did add Dan Boyle, which he's kind of old. It's pretty much, I don't know how much he's going to contribute. Lee Stempniak and Matt Lombardi on the front lines. I think they should have another solid year. We still got Henrik in goal, right? And they should finish around second or third, I think, in this division.
Yeah, their leading scorer last year had 59 points, and that was Matt Zuccarello. They did lose Derek Stepan. He's going to miss the first 4 to 6 weeks of the season, somewhere around that time frame. So that is a big loss for them. But like you said, they are really solid on the defense with McDonough and Girardi and those guys back there. Stahl, yep. So they're definitely a defense-first team. And they only allowed 193 goals last year, so that was second behind Boston in the East. So I expect them to be near the top 3. I expect them to be top 3 in the division this year to make the playoffs again. I don't know if they'll necessarily finish second, but I expect them in the playoffs again.
Yeah, I like Columbus this year to kind of make that jump ahead of them in second in this division.
Fair enough. Actually, we were going to talk about the team that finished next, but it's a good segue. Let's talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets. Right. Had 43 wins last year, was able to make the playoffs, and it was a big year for hockey in Ohio. They usually don't have that out there.
Yeah, they've made the playoffs for the first time since 2009.
Yeah.
They've always had great crowds. They always sell out in Columbus. Yep. They've got a great hockey town there. I think they've got the talent to get back there for sure. They made a great trade. They picked up Scotty Hartnell from Philly for R.J. Umberger, which I think was a great deal for Columbus.
Yep.
They've got Bobrovsky in goal still. He's solid. Ryan Johansson has emerged as a top talent for them. If they can get him re-signed, I know he's got a contract dispute going on.
Yep.
Put up 33 goals last year. They've got the size and depth up front. There's some question marks on defense, but I like them overall as a team.
Yeah, they got some young guys on defense, guys who proved things at other places. I like Jack Johnson on the back end. I don't think he's gotten his due. He does seem to be a streaky player at times.
Yeah, he's a bit overworked, I think, back there. He's a solid player. I wouldn't say he's like a number one guy, but
No.
yeah.
I mean, and something else I'd like to add of note is they should have Nathan Horton for a full season this year. He did miss a good chunk of the season. He was a very pivotal player for Boston during their Stanley Cup run. So I think adding him for a full season is really going to help guys like Dubinsky, and obviously their leading scorer last year was James Wisniewski, who was actually a D-man. So it's never a good sign if your D-man's your leading scorer, I feel, but it is nice to have that balanced scoring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like them a lot this year.
Yeah, definitely. The team that finished right before them last year was the Philadelphia Flyers at 42, 30, and 10. Obviously, if you're a hockey fan, you do know who their superstar is. It is Claude Giroux, 86 points last year. I expect him to come back to put up comparable numbers, maybe even better numbers this year.
Yeah, offense is definitely their strong point. I know their defense is pretty awful.
Yeah.
They did sign Mike Del Zotto to a one-year deal, but they're going to need a lot more help in the back end, I think. Still have Steve Mason in net. Giroux, he started really slow last year. I know a lot of people are jumping off him as far as fantasy goes.
Yep.
Then he had a huge second half. They still have Wayne Simmons, Braden Shen, Matt Reed, Jacob Voracek.
And Vincent LeCavalier as well.
That's true, yeah.
I like his veteran presence there. I don't think a guy who won a Stanley Cup as a captain, it's never a bad thing to have a guy like that on your team.
Yeah, I think the loss of Hartnell will be pretty big on this team. And I think they might just barely miss the playoffs this year.
Yeah, he was kind of the heart and soul of that team, I felt like.
He was, yeah.
And on the defensive side, they have guys. They have the other Shen brother. They got Mark Streit, who's old but still did have 44 points last year. He's a very good offensive defenseman. I actually kind of tend to agree with you. I don't think they are going to make the playoffs this year. I think they got very lucky. Really good goaltending by Mason last year. 33 wins. I don't really expect him to be that high again, personally.
Yeah, I think they're on the edge, but I think their defense is going to let them down overall.
Definitely. All right, jumping to the teams that did miss the playoffs last year, we got the Washington Capitals coming in with 38 wins last year. Obviously, they have the superstar in Alex Ovechkin, had 51 goals, but only 79 points last year.
And a minus 35 rating, which is pretty absurd and ridiculous.
For a guy who scores 51 goals, yes, it is. If anyone doesn't understand plus minus rating, it's when you're on the ice, if your team, the guys out there score for your team, you get a +1. If you're on the ice, when you get scored against, a -1. So he was scored against 35 more times than he was actually out there to be scored, have a goal scored with. So
yeah, not having the man advantage, that is. So
yeah.
But they hired Barry Trotz in the offseason. I think this is going to be a great signing for them. We'll see kind of what his relationship will be with Ovechkin. We saw what Trotz did in Nashville. He took a Predator team that really never had much to the playoffs a few times. He should be a big difference for them. I think they kind of overpaid for Orpik and Niskanen on the blue line, but they need a lot of help there as well.
Yeah, sometimes you're in that desperate situation where you have to overpay just to get a guy in.
Yeah. So they still have Green as well. He's kind of been on the downslide the past couple of years. He's still solid, but yeah, I don't think they're going to make the jump into the top tier there in the East.
No, I think they're very unbalanced when it comes to their team. They got Nicholas Backstrom, who had 61 assists last year, the same amount of points as Ovechkin, but their third leading scorer was Joel Ward, which is when I was talking to someone about this the other day, he was like a third, fourth line guy for the Nashville, and now he was the third leading scorer last year. That doesn't prove to be a good sign for you. They do have a lot of good young defensemen, but they're really not great offensively or great defensively. They're just kind of average, talking about Karl Alzner and John Carlson. So, and the one thing that always comes up with Washington is their goaltending.
Right.
Braden Holtby is going to be probably the starter this year. I actually watched the preseason game with them against the Sabres last night, and he was letting in terrible goals against probably one of the worst teams in hockey this year.
Interesting.
So I'm always interested to see what they do on the goaltending end for Washington.
Yeah, I think they're probably going to have to stick with Holtby for now.
Yeah.
And if he just sucks, I guess they're going to go with somebody else.
Yeah.
I don't know who their backup is, but
I don't even think it really matters. So we're going to jump into talk about the New Jersey Devils. Finished last year at 88 points, just a few points behind everyone for that last playoff spot. Kind of an older team and by kind of older, I mean their leading scorer was 42 years old or is 42 years old this year in Jaromir Jagr, but still looks like he can dangle some guys just to some sick moves.
Oh, yeah, he still can. They added Mike Camilleri and Martin Havlat to kind of up their offense. If Havlicek can stay healthy, he's always a great talent. And Camilleri's solid as well, but they still have Corey Schneider in net.
Yep.
Broder's gone. He retired. Sorry, Nick. I know he's a big Devils fan.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think they'll probably finish around the same spot they did last year.
Yeah, I think they just don't have enough firepower on their team. They got some good defenders. Andy Green's a pretty good offensive defenseman. Mark Zidlicki, but I just don't think they have enough there. Rounding out the bottom, we got the Carolina Hurricanes. They finished just a game above 500 last year. Already big injury for them. Lost Jordan Stahl for a few months with a broken foot. Thoughts on Carolina this year?
They really did nothing in the offseason. They still have Jeff Skinner. He's only 22, but they're going to be fighting Buffalo for last in the league.
Yeah, I have that feeling as well. You know, Cam Ward, there was talk about him not bringing him back in the offseason. I just don't think they have enough there. They have a great defenseman, Andre Sekera, offensive guy, but I just don't think there's enough there. But coming out of the break, we're actually going to finish with the last team in hockey in the Eastern Conference, the New York Islanders. You're listening to the Star Fantasy League show here on 105.5 The Team.
Play fantasy sports for cash prizes. Join the top daily and weekly fantasy leagues in the country at starfantasyleagues.com. Now, back to the Star Fantasy League show with Jonathan, Zach, and Nick. Only on The Team.
Wrong! That's probably my favorite part of the show. John always has a favorite part of his show. It's John's mailbag. But I really love saying wrong or no or stop it to the cage guy.
You just like abusing him.
I do. He didn't get fed again today, did he?
He never gets fed.
That's true. Right before the break, we were giving an NHL preview for the rest of the Eastern Conference, talking specifically about the Metropolitan Division. But we failed to talk about one team before the break, and that's the New York Islanders, soon to be the Brooklyn Islanders next year. The Islanders finished as a few points out of the last playoff spot. And by a few points, I mean they actually weren't even sniffing it. I just like to say that because I hate Islanders fans.
Do you?
Yeah, I mean, I
know one Islanders fan. He's pretty diehard.
Yeah, I know a couple who kind of diehard too. Honestly, I shouldn't rip on them because my team is terrible, so I really can't rip on anybody at all this season. But Islanders were led in scoring last year by Kyle Okposo. They did lose their superstar John Tavares for a good chunk of the season. He should be back 100% healthy.
Yeah, and they signed Yaroslav Halak to a 4-year deal, which is huge. I mean, goaltending was their glaring issue last year. They had Nabokov in net. He should be a key guy in net. He's proven himself. As long as Tavares can stay healthy, I think they'll compete. They added Grabowski and Kulemin, who are playing together. I think Kulemin, last time he played with Grabowski, had a 30-goal season in 2010-11. I think they'll definitely finish ahead of Carolina. They'll be a little better this year, especially with Halak in net if he's healthy. But they're not going to make the jump up into the for sure.
I definitely see them ahead of Carolina. I could see them again ahead of New Jersey, actually, as well. They can score goals. They had 225 last year, but they had an atrocious 267 scored against them, which was actually almost 20 more than the Sabres allowed, which is pretty amazing if you think about it.
Yeah, that's definitely why they needed Halak and shore up their goaltending for sure.
Definitely. All right, so that wraps up our Eastern Conference preview, the NHL teams. Again, tomorrow we're going to jump into the whole Western Conference and talk about both of the divisions out there. But it is Thursday, so we do want to run through the rest of the football games. We talked about a quarter of them, a third of them yesterday. We're going to finish up with the rest of the games today. We'll briefly touch upon the Monday night game, but we'll give you a full Monday night football preview next Monday as well. So the first game that we're going to jump into is going to be the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Indianapolis Colts, or former Baltimore Colts, if you like. So the over-under is set at 48. We are talking about this perspective as guys on Star Fantasy Leagues who we would like to play this week. That's kind of the breakdown we take. So what are some of the guys you like in this game?
We thought, I think this could be a shootout. I like Joe Flacco. I said that the other day. Colts are 20th against quarterbacks, but have only allowed 3 touchdowns to wide receivers in 4 games, so they've been giving it up to the tight ends. So then you can look at Owen Daniels as a value play at 6,500 on Star Fantasy Leagues. Colts are 30th against tight ends. He has a little limited upside, though, but he could be decent value. Andrew Luck's just exploded this year. he's the highest salary on Star Fantasy Leagues now. In his past 5 home games, he has 14 touchdown passes and only 3 sacks. He's leading the league in passing yards, touchdowns, and the Ravens have the 24th ranked pass defense.
Yeah, I like a lot of guys in this game. I think it's a big game where you can pull some guys out for value. I definitely like the Flacco. He's actually 4th in the NFL right now in attempts, so they are throwing the ball. I like Taliaferro at his price of about $5,700. I still see him pretty much splitting carries with Forsett, so for a value running back, that's not bad. I do like Colby Fleener as well in this game. He's only about $6,000, a little bit less. If you're trying to save money on tight end, I think that's an option where you might see he did catch a touchdown last week. So if you get a touchdown out of a value tight end, I think that's a pretty good day. Yeah,
I didn't see how much Dwayne Allen was. I know that they're kind of rivalish there at the tight end spot, but there's going to be a lot of offense in this game. Even Reggie Wayne's a decent value at $10,800. He had 119 yards and a touchdown last week. Ravens have been horrible stopping the wide receivers in the last couple of games, so he's looked solid this year. He already has 300 yards. So.
Yep, I agree. It's going to be a good game. I kind of expect the Colts to pull this one out. I think I picked them in my pick'em this week.
Yeah, definitely.
I like
Colts
them.
At home. I said that a couple segments ago. They've been great the past few years.
Yep.
They should be able to handle Baltimore.
Yeah, I think so too. Moving on, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the New Orleans Saints. Looks like Glennon is going to be pretty much the quarterback from this point on. They said McCown's probably not going to get surgery, but they don't know when he'll be back.
Yeah, still Lovie Smith, I don't think, really committed to that. Josh McCown's kind of his guy. He brought him in there. But they've been a better team with Glennon at quarterback. Mm-hmm. They do have the injury to Mike Evans. Mm-hmm. I really like Doug Martin's value this week. He's only at $11,700. We saw Murray torched them last week.
They did.
Saints have allowed the 7th most fantasy points to running backs. If they can kind of keep it close, he should have a big day. I like Vincent Jackson as well, seeing as he's pretty much the only guy that's going to be catching passes there.
Yeah, I love Jackson. He's under $10,000, and for a number 1 wide receiver who's going to be – he really came on late in the game last week, coming up with some big catches. That's important for a guy for someone to step up and do that.
Yeah, and Glennon and Jackson have shown great chemistry together.
Yep.
You could even look at Glennon. He's only $9,000, which is the minimum for a quarterback.
I have him listed as well.
Saints have allowed the 6th most fantasy points to quarterbacks as well. So as long as they can keep it close, he's going to be throwing the ball, I think, a lot anyways. And Drew Brees on the other side of the ball. At home last year, 27 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. They're coming off the embarrassing loss to the Cowboys. He should have something to prove. Look to Jimmy Graham as well.
Yeah, Graham is listed as the top tight end, which he is most weeks. I think he's worth paying this week. Look, you see what Heath Miller did last week. I think he had 10 receptions for 83 yards.
Yes.
He had a huge game against Tampa Bay. So I really like Graham this week. He proves that mismatch is really effective. I love Brandon Cooks in this game as well. If you looked at what Antonio Brown did last week, kind of a speedster guy, similar to what Cooks is. Yep. Cooks only listed at 11,000, just under 11,000. So.
Yeah, you might see the random Kenny Stills touchdown as well.
Yeah.
They're kind of one of those speedster guys.
Yep.
He puts up a big game every once in a while. It could be a kind of a sleeper pick there.
Definitely. Jumping into one of the other games slated for 1 o'clock this week, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the atrocious Jacksonville Jaguars. The line set at 46.5. I see a lot of guys in this game. I actually see a lot of fantasy value here on Star Fantasy Leagues.
Yeah, definitely. Pittsburgh somehow is only favored by 6 points. I know it's in Jacksonville, but
it's based on coming off that loss against Tampa, which was kind of,
Yeah. Jacksonville is the worst in the NFL against the pass, allowing 38 points. They're allowing 38 points per game overall. Rivers lit them up last week. They're allowing an average of 321 passing yards with an 11-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Mm-hmm. So I think Big Ben should have a big day. Antonio Brown, he's just been out of his mind this year.
Yeah, definitely.
You're going to have to pay up to get him, that's for sure. I think pretty much everybody's in play for Pittsburgh on offense in this one.
Yeah, I think so as well. Jacksonville can't really stop the run either, so I think both backs are good. I actually ranked Big Ben in my top 10 this week. I think he's a great play this week. He's only listed at 16,480, so I think that's a great option for a starting quarterback this week.
Yeah, and as far as Jacksonville goes, I kind of like Alan Hearns. He's at 9,000. Mm-hmm. Cecil Shorts is out, as we said. Jacksonville should be down a lot. They should have to throw the ball. He's got 250 yards and 3 touchdowns this year. could be a decent value play.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's in play. I think Allen Robinson at 7,000 is someone that it shows that Blake Bortles likes throwing to him. I think Bortles, if Pittsburgh gets ahead, Bortles will be throwing. If you look at what Mike Lennon did last week, kind of the same mold. The teams kind of mirror each other. Tampa Bay's a little bit better, but it's a very similar setting. I do like someone for super value, which I did say earlier this week. He had more snaps than the starting tailback. I do like Denard Robinson. Right. He's only listed at $3,000. So if you're managed to get a touchdown out of him, or even somewhat like 50 yards rushing and a couple catches, that's huge for a guy listed at $3,000.
Yeah, $3,000 is pretty much, I think, the minimum for a player. Yep. And if you're wanting to put somebody in like DeMarco Murray, or even have a top quarterback, he's definitely somebody you can plug in there and hope that he does it big for you.
Definitely. We're going to jump up a little bit across the eastern seaboard, and we're going to go to New York. They're taking on we're talking about the New York Football Giants. They are taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Giants looked great last Thursday night. Now they take on an Atlanta team that was kind of embarrassed, honestly, by the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, I think Rashad Jennings in this one is my top play. He's one of my top guys overall this week. He's got a real juicy matchup against Atlanta. They've allowed over 30 fantasy points per game to running backs, which is last in the NFL.
Yep.
He's only at 14,000, so he's kind of in the middle range there.
Yeah, if you're not looking to put money on Murray and you're looking for two value guys, you pick Jennings and, somebody else, and you pair them together, you probably have better value.
Yep. And on the other side of the ball, Matt Ryan. Falcons have been passing a ton. This actually is the highest over-under, I think, of pretty much this week.
Yeah.
It's close to, it was like 50. So there's going to be points in this game. I think Ryan should have a pretty nice day as well.
Definitely. I like all those guys. I like Cruz in this game. Honestly, I would play Larry Donnell. You look what he did against Washington the other night, and Atlanta's defense is way worse. So even though he's listed, his value keeps going up each week. He's still listed only at 11,000. So I think his production could be, somewhat comparable to what you get from like a Julius Thomas going. Well, probably not Thomas because they are facing Arizona, but maybe like Martellus Bennett going up against Carolina. Kind of something similar. I think you're better off taking Donnell. I even like the Giants' defense personally in this game.
Okay.
They're only listed at 2,100. They'll probably still give some points to Atlanta because they can still score, but Atlanta's a different team on the road.
Yeah, we've definitely seen that over the last few years. They're much better at home, and in Minnesota, I think Ryan had 2 interceptions.
Yep.
So he turns the ball over on the road.
Definitely. Staying in the NFC East, we have the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the St. Louis Rams. Rams officially today naming Austin Davis as their starting quarterback for the rest of the season, barring some kind of freak injury. Who do you like in this game?
I do like Davis. He's only 11,000. I actually like Sean Hill if he was playing, but I'll go back to Davis. If you want to pair him with one of their wide receivers, Brian Quick's only at 8,600. Philadelphia's allowed the 4th most fantasy points to wide receivers. Even Zach Stacy, he hasn't done much after a great season last year. They're coming off the bye. We saw what Gore did against the Eagles last week. Could be a little under the radar, decent value play there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say I love Quick. He's 8,600 basically for a starter number one. He's a big guy for me this week.
Yeah, and LaShawn McCoy now is down to 12,300. Could be his breakout game. It's probably going to be the lowest salary he's going to be at all year. They face some good run Ds. St. Louis is allowing the 13th fewest fantasy points per game to running back, but I think he could be due for a breakout game here.
Yeah, like you said, it's probably going to be the cheapest that you're going to see him at this point, so might as well put him in. And if you're not getting the production this week, I can't really say when he's going to ever do that again the rest of the season. I like Jordan Matthews at 8,000. I think Foles is going to end up putting up some points this week.
Yep.
I'll even take Zach Ertz for 8,400. He's kind of in the middle of the road tight end around that 8-9 area, but he might be good for a touchdown.
Yeah, and Jeremy Maclin's getting a ton of targets every game, so could be somebody else there.
Definitely. All right, coming out of the break, we're going to finish up with the rest of the games on the NFL slate on Week 5, and you are listening to the Star Fantasy League Show here on 105.5 The Team.
You're listening to the Star Fantasy League Show. Contact the StarFantasyLeagues.com guys via Twitter at SFL Show.
We are back here on the Star Fantasy League Show on 105.5 The Team. Again, I'm your host, Matthew Footer. It's filling in this week for Jonathan Sprung, joined by Jason. We are talking about the NFL Week 5 games right before the break. Yep. And the reason why we're talking about that is because we work for Fantasy Sports Company where you can play fantasy sports.
Yes, StarFantasyLeagues.com. leader in daily and season-long fantasy sports.
Yep.
Giving away, we have $16,000, over $16,000.
$16,000, highest up to the season so far.
In guaranteed money.
That's impressive. I like guaranteed money. That means that we have to give that money away no matter what.
It does.
Zach allowed that?
He did.
Okay. You know what also he allowed? A $500 free roll, which you can enter.
That's right.
And if you use the promo code FREE14, that's FREE14, you get a bonus credit of 2,000%. 100% up to $2,000. I don't even remember at this point because it's so crazy. And you get $11 free credit. I do know that. That's free money in your account.
Yes, as we said, we love the free money.
Definitely. All right, we're going to kind of roll through the rest of these games real quick because we want to get them in for you, the listeners. We got Arizona facing off against the Denver Broncos. I don't see much of an offensive output in this game, honestly.
Yeah, the one guy I'm looking at is Andre Ellington at 12,000. Coming off a bye, he's had a chance to rest his foot. Should get a lot of touches. Now he's basically the only running back in Arizona. Broncos are 21st against running backs. And Julius Thomas on the other side of the ball, we said that Cardinals are awful against tight ends. So
yep, they are.
He's scored in every game so far this year.
I even like Jacob Tamme. He's got 2 touchdowns this year. If you're looking for a value guy for 4,600. The other guy I kind of really like is Demaryius Thomas. He's listed at about 13,000. That's probably the lowest you'll see him in a while. So
definitely,
I think it's a good option there. Jumping to another game, we got Cleveland taking on the Tennessee Titans. What do you got in this game?
I like Jordan Cameron and Andrew Hawkins, both around 9,000. They're coming off a bye as well. And on the other side of the ball, Delaney Walker, he's tied with Jimmy Graham for second in fantasy scoring for tight ends. And look at Bishop Sankey.
Yeah, I'm high on the Bishop Sankey.
He's only 7,800. If they do announce him as a starter, he's got a great value matchup. Cleveland's already allowed 5 touchdowns to running backs. So
yeah, I was high on Sean Green to start the season based on what I was reading. They figured by week 4, week 5, it was Sankey would start to roll in and get his progression. For number one back, if he ends up being that for less than 8,000, that's a great value right there. I even like Brian Hoyer for the minimum, or not for one of the lower ones for starting quarterbacks at 9,000. Another game we have is New York Jets taking on the San Diego Chargers in San Diego. Couple guys I kind of like in this game. Keenan Allen still listed at $10,000. Had a big breakout game last week. I like Antonio Gates for around $11,000. I like the San Diego defense for about $3,000. Who do you like for San Diego?
Phillip Rivers, pretty much their whole passing attack there. And Chris Ivory at 10,000. He's getting the double-digit carries every game this year. Looks to be far ahead of Chris Johnson. San Diego ranks 21st in rushing rate at 4.5 yards per carry. So they can keep it close. Look at Chris Ivory.
And if you're really chancing you want to do something kind of wild, I wouldn't go against putting in Vic at $9,000 based on what Geno Smith has been doing. I wouldn't probably do it this week, but it's something you want to look at. So, all right, moving up the coast there, we're going to take a preview look at the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Both teams coming off huge wins last week. I definitely like both Kansas City running backs, actually, at their value.
Yeah, and Charles is only 12,900. We saw what he did last week against New England. Niners do have a tough run D, but his price can't be missed. And other side of the ball, Niners, I don't like a ton of guys here. Maybe Colin Kaepernick. He's had over 50 yards rushing his last 3 games.
Yep, Kansas City hasn't allowed a rushing touchdown, so I'm not a big fan of Gore. Finishing up on Sunday, we got Cincinnati and New England. I like everybody in Cincinnati. New England can't really stop anybody.
Gio, I think he's going to be the top guy this week.
Definitely. I like Gronk in that game as well. Again, we're going to probably preview the Monday night game next Monday, or the guys are. So stay tuned for those games. But again, you can play Star Fantasy League games at any time. We got the best daily, season, week-long games. Football, basketball starting in a few weeks. We have playoff baseball starting soon. And thank you for listening to the Star Fantasy League show here on 105.5 The Team.